Morning. I'm excited about this topic, and even though you might not be at a company that is in hyper growth, I've got enough nuggets, I think, in here that you'll be able to apply to a rebuild opportunity, or if you have a division that you need to relook at. So hopefully there'll be a nugget or two for everyone in the audience. And so let me, before I dive into the agenda, just give you a sense of Trulia. How many of you use Trulia? Okay, good. All right, so Trulia is a real estate platform where we help consumers find their homes, whether it's rentals or their home that they want to live in for the rest of their life, as well as agents helping them build their business. And it's a huge market, $27 billion market, and over half of it is moving online. So the opportunity is huge. And some of the tools I'm sure you see for the folks that use it, you can find homes on maps, detailed property information. We've got great data as well. So should you rent, should you buy? Also we have crime analysis maps, and we have other data that's really, really important. Where to find love. Oh yeah. So we have analysis in San Francisco, for example. So any single females, the marina is where you want to rent. Oh, I'm sorry, that was opposite. So the men rent in the marina. The women, Patura Hill is where you want to go. And then for agents, we have some free products they can put their profile on. And listings, of course, are free. And then this is where we make money, the advertising, so connecting the agents with the consumers. The revenue may seem small to you. FY14 is projected at $245 million. For some of you, that might just be a small division. But for us, we're proud of it, and we're proud of the consistent growth year over year. So now let me dive into what we love about startups. So from talking to a lot of employees at the various companies I've worked at, and candidates, employees love to be a part of something. And that really comes to life in a startup. They're oftentimes sitting there with the CEO. They have access to the knowledge, to the decisions. There's passion, they can move quickly. So all of those things are the great parts about a startup. And so how do we take those great attributes and retain those as we scale? So I thought we would look at some of the leaders who have some great concepts about how to do this. So I chose 4 leaders, Dan Shapiro at LinkedIn, Brad Smith at Intuit, Ben Horowitz from Andreessen Horowitz, and Professor Rao at Stanford. And I thought I'd just give a quick snapshot of some nuggets from each one of those, because it's quite interesting. So Dan Shapiro, I worked with him when I was at LinkedIn, VP of Talent Solutions. He actually wrote a small white paper on the billion-dollar startup. You can see it on his blog and at LinkedIn. And he was exploring this very topic, like how do you retain that DNA that you love about a startup while you grow? And he's got lots of good ideas, but the two that resonated the most with me are, one, make sure you listen to the frontline employees, because no matter how big you are, the employees that are closest to the work and the customers know best what needs to be done or what's not working. Another idea he had is make sure you're hiring for not just culture, but long-term potential. And that's really hard to do when you've got a startup and you have limited resources and you need to hire for that point in time. But try and resist that and hire for the longer term. Brad Smith, so he's got a great blog, and his idea is once you have common purpose, and you've removed friction, which oftentimes means get out of the way, then let them go, empower them, and then build some discipline in the organization where you can bring to light the teams that have moved quickly, because that's your best way of spreading it with the organization. And then Professor Huggy Rao and Sutton wrote a book, Scaling Up Excellence. And I had the pleasure of having Professor Rao come to Trulia to have dinner with a couple of our leaders and talked about his concepts. And the two that resonated with me were the broken window and the pre-mortem. So the broken window is, if you let bad behavior continue, people will think that's the new norm. And so clear away the bad behavior and beliefs to make way for efficiencies and growth. I think this is one you can apply even if you're not growing, maybe you're rebuilding. And then the pre-mortem I love. Why wait? In fact, it's my pet peeve. Why wait until it's over and say, oh, we need to do a post-mortem? Why not do a pre-mortem? So recently at Trulia, we fully integrated with a company we acquired called Market Leader. And so a couple weeks before we were going to execute on the announcement and the org changes, I got all the leaders into a room and said, let's shut your eyes, imagine a year from now, and we bombed. Total failure. The integration was the word. People are writing about how bad it was. And let me whiteboard what was so bad about it. And then we can pick through, are we prepared to address all of those things? So they came up with employees don't trust us, customers are confused, and we whiteboarded all of those ideas in a pre-mortem. So I thought that idea was super helpful. And then Ben Horowitz has a lot of great ideas. He talks about how at a small company, knowledge, communication, and decision-making are so natural and easy, but those are the three things that are the hardest as you grow. And to think through each one of those, and what is the knowledge people need? How is the best way to communicate and be authentic? And how can you make decisions? And to be mindful of those three. So HR investments, which ones come first? And this is just my point of view. I really think the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a good thing to consider. Obviously you need to get the bills paid and payroll, but I really do believe the first thing to invest in is culture and values, because that is the hardest thing to change. Once your culture is set, everything will snap to that. The people you hire, the processes you put in place, everything will snap to the culture and values. So if you arrive at a startup or a new division or wherever you are, and most of the time those are set, but I think you can help out by really cementing. How do you cement those culture and values? And then the other things, most of these I'm sure is pretty expected from you, but the other one I wanted to call out was compensation. Compensation is the one, from talking to a lot of my colleagues who head up HR, is the one that they regret that they didn't invest in sooner. Usually when you're at a startup, it's get the recruiter on board, get people hired. Most people don't think, let's get a compensation analyst in. But again, that's one of those things, if you don't address titling, or at least a lightweight compensation structure, you've sort of set precedent, and that can be very personal and difficult to unwind. Okay, so I thought I would go over just a top 10. And I gathered the top 10 from talking to my colleagues, leveraging the work of other leaders, and these are top 10 things that I would suggest you consider as you rebuild or scale for growth. The first one is the basics. There's no need to invest in a world-class leadership program if you're not paying people properly. Like I joined LinkedIn, and one of the leaders said, I want you to work on a leadership program. And I said, dude, I need to make sure people are paid properly. Like literally people were not being paid on time and accurately. So I think we need to focus on the basics. It's not always sexy, but you just have to hit that one right away. Process light. So I left Microsoft to go to LinkedIn, and after I had worked there a little while, I met with the sales leaders to talk about succession planning. And I was fairly proud that I had developed this robust succession planning framework. And I could have been speaking Swahili. Like, they looked at me like I had two heads. And it was, succession planning is a great framework, but I was applying the wrong size of a solution to where LinkedIn was at the time. And so I took the feedback. It was very humbling. and ended up working with them on developing bench, sales bench, marketing bench, leadership bench, which was a solution that really fit the problem. So the message here is you don't have to not do succession planning, but how do you do it in a light way, in a way that still gets the structure and the spirit out there while meeting them where they are. Empowerment. You know, every process, every infrastructure should be to empower others, not check on them. No big company. So this one, what's interesting about this one is I find employees tend to complain that we're too big company when it's really about accountability. So I think the one thing to watch out for is you can be small and agile as a company and still be accountable. So at Trulia, we implemented OKRs, which is objective and key results, a methodology, a goal-setting methodology that Intel started, Google uses, and some others. And we implemented that where the employees commit to their top 3 goals and how it's measured. And I think there's a way to do that without seemingly too big company. Fly spray for the fly. So another example, not a proud example. When I was at LinkedIn, I was asked to develop the global onboarding program. And so I rallied a team together and came up with, I mean, you guys would have loved it. It was amazing, world-class, so innovative. So, I mean, every detail. And it bombed. I mean, I didn't get it approved. And I realized after 5-6 therapy sessions that I had created a nuclear bomb to kill a fly, right? When all we needed was some fly spray. And so the solution and the spirit was right, but it was just a miss. And you know, I can talk about it today, therapy's working. But if you can learn from my mistakes, that would be one. The spirit was right, it was just, I was not meeting them where they were. Okay, it's about value. This is a framework that I encourage my team to use. And there's lots of frameworks out there, and it's just before you dive into a project, before you implement a process or infrastructure, do a quick value against probability. And in probability would be, you know, the resources, what other company initiatives are going on, how much mind share can you get out of it. And that should help you find the sweet spot. That doesn't mean that you can't focus on some other things, but it should help your team prioritize. Launch and learn, not lunch and learn. So this is an idea, I think, where you can, it helps to grow in a way that keeps that spirit and that culture, where you launch the concept and the idea, but not completely filled out and complete, so that the business has a chance to put their mark in it, get some feedback, before it's finalized. Now, this is not an excuse to launch something half-baked and it bombs and you're like, oh, well, I was doing a launch and learn. This is really just get that spirit out, get the concept out, perhaps say it's phase 1 and we're going to take feedback before we implement further. But again, this is a way when we're talking about scaling and growing, while you keep that spirit and that culture, this is a way to do that. Data is your friend, but your friends aren't always around. Data is king, of course, but there are times when the company's pace is moving so quickly that to sit around and wait for the right data is not the right answer. And so you're going to have to go with the commentary. And the message here is just be clear when you are going to follow data and when you're going to wait around for data and when you're going to move forward without. Good enough. This is almost counterintuitive, the idea of, you know, the cost for excellence. To bring something to an excellence level may not always be the right answer. So my HR team, for example, I don't want them to be known for running a good audit. Boy, that Trulia HR team, man, they run a mean audit. I would rather have them known for, wow, they figured out how to maximize our revenue by reducing attrition. Like that's what I want them to be known for. And so to think through, what are those pillars or components of your organization that just right out of the gate you are going to be average? I think there's nothing wrong with that. It sets expectations. The business doesn't expect some fancy tool. Your team knows where to move forward with innovation and ideas. So I think that's an important one to think through. Communication. This is a big one no matter what size of company, and especially when you're growing and scaling. How do you remain authentic? I think when companies grow, they tend to speak more formally, when actually you can still communicate to the masses while having more of a folksy style that resonates with your company. The last one, I think this is an important one that I use, and it works for me. I'm pretty happy with it. Some of these concepts, you try in different environments and then over time change. This one I'm sticking with, and that is, as you're building and growing your team, I mean, let's face it, you'll never have the perfect amount of resources. You'll never have the perfect team. It just won't. And so to commit to yourself and your team that at least in one area you will bring them to excellence. So for Trulia, this year we're bringing recruiting to a level of excellence. The others, mind you, we're trying to solve problems, bring value, but at least for this year, we're bringing it to a level of excellence. And it's important for the company to view excellence from the HR team. Okay, yeah, we know they're capable of being excellent. And it's important for the HR team to feel what excellence looks like. Because once you taste it, then you want it again. But it's just not realistic as you're growing and scaling to be excellent in everything. Thank you.